Welcome everyone to another episode of In Conversation with, and today I'm in conversation with my good friend and colleague Angela Green, who's the Bodywise Facilitator. So, welcome Angela. Lovely to get the chance to talk a little bit about you today and the work that you do. So, how long have I known you now? It'll be Goodness me. A good few years, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, it's probably just over 10 years maybe now.
Wow, is
Yeah,
that long? Good, sweet. Wow. So
yeah.
yes, I think we sort of met through kind of Leeds, I think, wasn't it? Because you were behind that whole concept of, what was going on in Leeds at the time, back in the day then. And it's sort of grown from that, I guess, really, isn't it? Sort of a common interest in how we could try and sort of make things better, really, isn't it, in the city, and looking at compassion and what that means too. Um, and that was also being quite sort of strategic, I guess, wasn't it, really, a lot of that work. Um, but then now our focus is sort of has come back down to the human being, I think, which is interesting. So yeah, so I just wanted to ask you just to tell us a little bit more about you and your original sort of story and the start of your journey with this work.
Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this, Jerry. Yeah, it's such a delight to talk to you about all this work. And yes, it's really interesting thinking about how we met and in that wider context of community work effectively that I was
Mm,
involved in at that time.
mm,
And in the founding of the Kinder Leads project. And it was all about how do you bring compassion and well-being and kindness to a city at city level. And over the years, that's kind of narrowed down and taken me on a more focused journey to where I am now as a somatic therapist and a mindfulness teacher. Yeah.
mm,
And yeah, well, and I guess what's really important to me is that my whole journey is very much an embodied journey. I've
mm,
worked 36 years in the NHS and just retired last year to set off as a solo business owner doing what I'm doing now. But I guess it's that whole of me and my own personal journey and healing and recovery and discovery, that whole journey of becoming who I'm meant to be in the world, really, is what it was all about,
mm,
that journey,
mm,
and still is very much that journey. And yeah, it's been such a fascinating journey in how I met you, and then I worked with you. I was a client of yours,
mm,
um, and felt very privileged to do some deep work in you kind of what the work that we did together around helping me come home to my body, because that they're the
mm.
words that I
Yeah,
use to
yeah.
describe that reconnection with myself. Because when I approached you some years ago, I was kind of struggling with my mental health, very overwhelmed, very living in my head. And I guess the work that we did, that one-to-one work, set me off on this exploration of
Mm,
what it is and what it's all about, to learn and embrace the whole humanness of, yeah, the journey, the emotions, the nervous system, the whole of who we are,
yeah,
really.
yeah.
Because often there's the whole world that we live in can be quite difficult to navigate, and even more difficult when you've had past experiences like complex trauma. So my
Mm,
journey is basically one of different parts of complex past trauma. But and I kind of was really stuck in my head and in a state of overwhelm when I reached you on medication and everything. And we'd met previously and I hadn't really understood how the working with you was going to really help me. I just was, I need to relax, and maybe it'll
That's right.
massage and touch, and what you do and your various different types of holistic offerings might help me. So,
Mm, mm,
but I was, incredibly surprised how working from the body upwards was so powerful. I've done a lot of talk therapy in the past, having had kind of CBT, EMDR, and different types of talk therapy. And
mm,
all that was really useful in its own way, but
mm,
actually working from the body up, from the
mm,
waist up, kind of learning to reconnect with my nervous system, learning to navigate emotions, was just such a fascinating process. It led me very powerfully to find my modality that I use called Embodied Processing, and to train in that modality,
mm.
which is all about bringing more conscious awareness of what's going on in the body in terms of emotions and nervous system states, and helping people process that. And then that led to me more recently developing the Bodywise journey,
Mm,
which myself as a Bodywise facilitator, what I do is help hold space for people to become more aware of their own responses in their body and their lived experiences, how their nervous systems work, basically.
yeah.
Help them then process what's present for them. And really importantly, integrate. So the integration is all about living and embracing the whole parts of you and
Mm,
the different responses that your nervous systems have, because we're
mm.
all so uniquely humanly different, and we all respond in different ways to what's going on around us
We
and the
do.
world. So
do.
yeah, so I love
It's an interesting
really,
journey, isn't it? All of that when you think about
yeah,
the
and
direction
it's
and the
about that
complexity of it.
connecting and holding space for people.
I was going to ask you about that because the other thing as well that we've sort of put together over recent years is the Holding Space group and in its various forms. And I think the other sort of dimension to you, which I've also been really interested in the work that you're doing in the NHS around facilitating conversations, with the Schwartz round work as well. But it's that sort of skill set. And I think, facilitating, I've sort of trained as a facilitator as well previously with a lovely guy called Tony Mann, who introduced me to the concept of facilitation as being a particular skill, which is not always something people appreciate, I think. And yet, I think there's so many different aspects to the skills of facilitation that are also very, very valid and key to working with people as we are as therapists as well. I don't know what your thoughts were about, your facilitating experience, I guess.
Yeah, wow. And I mean, that's a really key part. And I guess it's the how of what I do. It's the
Mm,
framework in which I work with people, whether that's in groups, face
mm,
to face, online, or one to one. The concept of holding space as a
mm,
kind of facilitative way is quite different. It's kind of like almost quite the opposite idea of trying to have an intention of fixing somebody,
yeah,
or kind of directing them as such, although there's always an element of sometimes we need to guide people
sure.
into being curious to discover what's present for them. But
Mm,
yeah, I've done some different types of facilitation training, including compassion practice
mm,
facilitation. And you mentioned Schwartz rounds, that's linked to the NHS,
mm,
and have had a lot of experience holding different types of spaces for different groups of people for
mm,
different reasons.
mm,
And there's really something deep about having and developing those skills as a
mm,
therapist, perhaps in whatever you type of therapist or whatever modality you use. The idea of holding space for me means creating a safe environment where people
Mm,
can be authentically themselves,
mm,
where people can, if they choose to, share who they are and what's present for them. So it's helping people be more present to their own awareness,
mm,
and self, yeah, what's going on for them. So it's
yeah,
helping them basically explore their own journey. I call it embodied self-inquiry. So I facilitate people to do a self-inquiry process. So I invite them to drop more deeply in towards their body.
mm,
So that in doing that, they very often have to, navigate that relationship from their head to their mind to their body, because the
yeah,
mind can be quite distracting and quite busy. But
absolutely.
ultimately, you're helping them kind of notice that the mind might be busy, or notice that it's interfering, and almost just put that in the background
Mm.
and bringing into the foreground their kind of more deeper listening. It's creating spaces for deeper listening.
That's a
And
beautiful
that's,
way to put it. That
yeah,
idea of creating space for deeper listening, for sure. Yeah,
yeah. And whether that's a one-to-one, somebody deeper listening into themselves, but quite often also it could be deeper listening to each other as well, with a
absolutely.
felt sense of embodied. So it's deeper listening from the body and
Yeah,
not just the
yeah.
mind.
And
Yeah.
it's very much a relational thing. And I know, you talk a lot about relational aspects to this work too, isn't it? Which quite often you don't really sort of think, I don't always think people appreciate what that actually means and how key that is to all this type of work. And not just our sort of therapeutic work, but, even within organizations as well, so too. So, I think one of
Yes.
the interesting issues that has cropped up as well between us has been, as you say, being able to sort of not only hold space, but also leave space for people to consider and reflect and so on. And it always makes me smile thinking about the work that you've done outside of the sessions and the illustrations, the ways that you've been actually literally been able to, you know, illustrate your journey and the things that have come up. And that's always made me smile thinking about, Fat Janet in the picture, for example. But it was amazing, really, just the power of those pictures as well, wasn't it, that you came up with following the sessions that we had, and how
Yeah.
that's actually, I think, transpired into the model of your sort of way of working and all of that now. That's sort of developing.
Yeah, and it was really interesting because, yeah, I remember, what you're talking about is the images that I drew after some of the sessions, and I was
Mm,
kind of, yeah, just playing around with pencils and images of, and it helped me process and
mm,
understand my journey
yeah.
in a deeper way, and creating that what was happening to me when we were working together, and how I was processing that. And
Mm,
yeah, I mean, some people journal, don't they? And
I do.
I was journaling a little, but I tend to like to draw images. And yeah, Fat Janet, your lovely cat that used to greet me every day at the gates when I arrived for the appointments, um, was even part of that journey. Cats are so present, aren't they? And
Mm,
so, yeah, and I went on after, doing that image of the experience of working with you in your clinic room, and the body work and massage and different types of things we worked on together for me, and then going on to doing other images of what my nervous system felt like, and
mm,
parts, that
mm,
idea of parts of us. And a
mm,
lot of my work is about helping people meet these, and I use the word orphaned parts quite
mm,
often, or they're past parts of us that have
mm,
perhaps got some emotional kind of context around them, or some difficulty or suffering, or something that's not yet being allowed to process, because at some point it wasn't able to process at that
Right.
time. So something that's perhaps happened to us in our past, or an experience, or a number of experiences
Hmm.
that get stuck as what we call unprocessed survival, like an adaptation pattern
Yeah.
that gets that often embedded in the nervous system.
Mm.
And initially, it can be even below our conscious awareness. And I think this is what one of the things that working with you really helped me with, is bring all these parts into my awareness. And then I
Mm.
was able to start drawing these younger versions of me, like
Mm.
what they looked like, what they felt like, what emotions they wanted to express. And in that way, I could begin to have a different relationship with those parts. You talked about everything's relational, and
Mm.
whether that's
Mm.
holding space, or holding space for ourselves,
Mm.
how we are holding space for all the parts that make up us
Yeah.
as a human being, as a whole. So yeah, I was able to, I went away and started studying all this, as you know, and
Mm.
Janina Fisher's work, parts
Mm.
work, is
Tremendous, isn't
part
it?
one of the models that I
Yeah.
particularly love, around having those qualities of embracing all of who we are,
Yeah.
because those parts are really deeply embedded in our kind of identity in a way.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
where we've not had a good relationship with them, there, or we reject them, or we suppress them, or we
Yeah.
don't meet their needs, or because they at some point in our lives didn't have their needs met, or
Yeah.
weren't seen, those kind of metaphorical parts of us, that,
Yeah.
energy there is still stuck until we bring
Absolutely.
it into our awareness,
Absolutely.
embrace them with all those
Yeah.
qualities of compassion, curiosity.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's
though it begins,
interesting. Sorry, I was just
yeah.
thinking there what you're saying about the different parts, but also it's the shadow parts as well, quite often, isn't it? Which are really the key things that we've also got to attend to and recognize and acknowledge and so on. And
Well,
there's a lot
yeah,
of tricky work there
yeah.
too. Yeah.
Effectively, yes. The our parts kind of in a way are shadows, like kind of in effect in a way. Um, and yeah, some of those more difficult, yeah, the stuff about what it really means to be human, yeah.
Mm.
And it gets a bit messy at times. And I know, just reflecting on the journey I've been on with you, it was very messy at times, It's like when I started just to realize how emotional I was. It felt overwhelming, It's like opening a kind of a tap full on. It's like I had to, oh, let's just go easy here,
Mm.
and titrate this a bit, kind of
Mm.
like gently, um, yeah, take time to understand and be with emotions, because emotions can be a huge thing, especially when we're taught from so young not to feel.
Yeah.
Um, and there is all wrong to feel, and it's wrong to express
Exactly.
emotions.
Exactly. Yeah.
Over years and years, that gets ingrained in the nervous system. And then there's a whole lot of reprogramming needs to be done to go, oh, it is safe to feel an emotion. That
Absolutely.
and by doing that, we can begin to slowly reprogram the brain and the
Yeah.
neural networks. One of the biggest things I've realized of it is a journey and not a destination. And it's
Mm.
not about all the quick fixes.
Mm.
The insights and the wisdom along the way, they all matter, and they all kind of contribute to growth. But there's really something key about, my new model is called an up spiral journey. It's about these things sometimes reappear
Mhm.
and trigger us, and I always see triggers as gifts. They're gifts and gateways into insights. But each time you're triggered or have a response or reaction in your nervous system, or an emotional response of some description, it can give you new knowledge
Mm.
but you're looking at it from a different place because you may have been there before, but this is different because you've actually grown and
Yeah.
you're in a different
Yeah.
place in the journey.
Yes. We're not going
Uh,
full circle, are we? We're actually in that
yeah,
spiral. Yeah.
yeah. And all the meantime, the whole thing about integration and continuity is when you're very much into the self-development work and you're going on a journey of kind of growing and integrating and embracing the whole of you and whole of your parts, is that you need to continue to live life as well. And
Now
yeah,
that's a biggie, isn't it?
yeah,
I think
because
sadly
there's a
sometimes we get too caught up, don't we,
yeah,
in ourselves if we're not
absolutely.
careful. Yeah.
And it's, you and I have talked quite a lot about that idea of being present where you are now,
Mm,
being aware of how you're relating to the past,
mm,
but also importantly, how you're relating to the future as you're moving forward as well.
yeah.
And there's something
Yeah.
really key in holding space for that place of steadiness and capacity, which is what my
Mm,
integration part of the journey is all about.
mm, mm,
So yeah, the Bodywise journey is a process of understanding
yeah.
body responses and
Yeah.
emotions and parts. It's about processing that unstuck energy in the body, these old survival patterns that are ready. And when they show up, they usually means the body's ready and the body wisdom is ready to explore and complete that energy. But
Mm,
importantly, integration and
mm,
living life with a
mm,
sense of steadiness
mm.
and that's all about building practices into daily life. And
Yeah.
it may also be about occasionally taking a step back. And even
Mm.
now, every now and then I come back to you for a session um,
Yeah. Yeah.
to top up and to reconnect and to explore whatever I need to at that time.
Mm. And it's important to, I think, come back or return, as you say, to the body as much as our thought processes and our concepts and our thinking, isn't it? Which is a key part. But it's interesting, I think, when you sort of hear a lot of other things that are being talked about increasingly, I think there seems to be a better understanding of the need to integrate, as you say, body and mind. I think people are beginning to appreciate the value of the body as much as the mental and the mind aspects of things. There was actually an interesting program on Radio 4 just yesterday morning, which I caught. Um, which again they were talking about these concepts, and it was really refreshing, I think, to hear people actually, reminding each other in the program about the body as much as the mental aspects of health. So it's getting there. I think people are beginning to appreciate, there's so much of learning, so much of awareness and consciousness is actually in the body as much as the mind. And I think, our work with this is
Yeah,
invaluable now. But I just wanted to
and
ask you a little bit about, sorry, I was just going to
that's all
to
right.
tell us a little bit about embodied processing, which is the specific type of process, I guess, that you work with. I always want to call it emotional processing because it's all about the emotions too, but it's embodied processing.
Yeah, it is called specifically embodied processing, but yes, very much about emotional processing as well. So yeah, and this I think I'm kind of touched on it a little bit already in our discussion, but it's about kind of giving people a space to explore. It's a journey of self-inquiry. It's that dropping into the body and noticing what's happening in the body. Our
Mm.
bodies communicate with us in a different language to our minds. Yeah. Our minds talk in words and thoughts, and sometimes can be very tricky and untruthful
Indeed.
about what we're thinking. Whereas our bodies have a deeper innate wisdom, which is when you kind of can give it space to explore and time, and basically, my as a facilitator, I help people to drop in to notice what they're experiencing in their body, whether that's felt sensations or emotions
Hmm.
or, yeah, or subtle things. Sometimes, people can have images. Some people are more visual than others,
Mm.
around what they notice in their body, but whether it's kind of like a felt sense of energy, tension, emotion, things kind of whether it's stuck, flowing, moving, has it a shape? And I help them explore that with very simple embodied inquiry questions. So it's that, about what you're noticing and what kind of a feeling, a sensation is that? And is there
Mm.
anything else about that? Because when we allow and sit with fully and be with those internal felt sensations, whatever they are, and it's that idea of welcoming everything that's in our awareness. So
Mm.
that idea of everything's part of us, all our experience is part of us. And it's about allowing the experience to
Mm.
be there with a sense of curiosity. And when we begin to really feel into the felt sensations of the body and the emotions and be with them and allow them, giving them space,
Mm.
very often behind that, there's a sense of deeper wisdom, a sense of a new insight or a new understanding,
Mm.
often linked to one of our core beliefs. So,
Mm.
for example, kind of chronic shame is a really common one that I often encounter with clients. They're often the body automatically kind of goes into a bit of a collapsed posture with
Mm.
shame. It feels kind of heavy and pulls
Mm.
into the body. And
Yeah.
so I kind of encourage people to drop in and be with that sensation and explore their meaning making behind that. And very
Mm.
often there's an orphaned part behind it
Mm.
that is
Mm.
needing to just explore that felt sense of not feeling good enough, or even deeper, feeling like there's something inherently wrong with me as a
Yeah.
person, because core shame is such a difficult toxic one,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
um, to navigate. But
What do
people
you
need to
find?
be safe to be able to go there, and
Yeah.
there's something about helping people recognize their nervous system capacity, to be with what they're noticing in their body.
That's a really important issue, I think, and sometimes one which can be quite difficult, I think, for some people. That whole idea of having the capacity to be able to be exposed to the emotions, and I think sometimes it's really tricky when some people are particularly overwhelmed. And I think this is the balance, isn't it, in our work between creating a container of safety and also at the same time inviting people to drop into that sometimes overwhelming, sense of, as I say, shame, guilt, fear, all of
Mhm.
those aspects too, which can take people over the edge almost.
Yeah,
It's a real balance, the balancing act that we've got to be able to perform, I think, as a therapist, but equally it's a real challenge for the person too. I don't know how you sort of found that.
absolutely. Absolutely, Jerry. And everyone's in a different place on their journey,
Mm.
in terms of their awareness of how connected they are to the body and their capacity. And as a somatic therapist, really importantly, one of the first things I start when I'm working with clients is making sure people are resourced in their nervous system.
Mm.
So I set them off on the journey of helping them build capacity in their nervous system. The window of tolerance, we've talked a lot about, haven't
Mm.
we? That
Mm.
idea of having a nervous system that can navigate difficult feelings, sensations, emotions without too much overwhelm, because
Mhm.
the too much overwhelm when we're outside of our window of capacity can push us into more extreme states in our nervous system,
Yeah.
which we don't want. And it's really important as therapists that we're not kind of creating the conditions where people feel overwhelmed. But it's this whole thing about helping people feel in control of their own
Mm,
journey and
mm,
feeling in control of their own inquiry and
mm.
building their capacity in order to navigate more difficult stuff. So there's
Yeah.
something really powerful about the ongoing background work of
Yeah.
getting to know your own nervous system, your practices to help regulate your nervous system and to build that inner
Yeah.
capacity. Um,
Uh,
and the trust that you build with
yes.
clients
Yeah.
or group work, it's building that felt sense of safety and the trust of the journey that you can always go back to resourcing
Mm,
to stabilize the nervous system
mm.
if needed. Yeah,
And
because
it's a
it
real
can.
set of skills, isn't it, that we are helping people develop and are teaching along the way as well. But it is something which does take time as well. It's not a quick fix, and it's not a sort of once and done type of thing either, is it, really?
Yeah, exactly. Because the nervous system just can be in different places depending on what's going on in the world, what's going on internally. There's lots of factors, relationships. Everything's relational, as you mentioned
Mm,
earlier. And
mm,
we can our mind body relationship can be in a different place quite frequently, even over a space of a day.
mm,
And sometimes we might feel very deeply connected and present with what's going on in our bodies in an embodied way. And other days, I mean, even myself, I know that, if there's something going on or there's something like kind of got pain in my body,
mm,
that can cause a bit of dysregulation in my nervous system. And my mind can kick in and I can be overthinking and things like that and I
yeah.
become a little bit more disconnected from my mind and body. But yeah, everybody's so uniquely different um in their journey and it does take so much courage sometimes to drop into the mind and body because we
Mm,
have a lot of protective layers. Quite often it's fear, it's kind of,
yeah.
yeah. And often as a somatic therapist, I'm working with people's layers
Yeah.
before we even get to perhaps a core feeling or a core emotion or a core belief
Yeah.
that's underneath all that stuff because it's the fear of feeling. I think one of
Fear of
the big
feeling. Interesting.
things we need to get much better at is getting better at feeling and feeling our feelings.
Mm,
Um,
interesting.
yeah,
No, no. No, I think I was just thinking as well about, the work we've been doing together over time, both within the NHS and also yeah, at Ilkley, and how, some of the workshops we're starting to do, and the one coming up is something which I'm looking forward to, where going to be talking about how we can soften the armor, but also how we so often, without even realizing, carry our armor around, and how that might have been informed by trauma and other things that have happened to us, I guess. But how we soften the trauma is quite how we soften the armor is going to be quite an interesting workshop, I think. And I'm looking forward to
yeah,
doing that with you.
yeah, for sure. And it's a great metaphor, isn't it? The armor, that idea
Mm,
of we carry so much inside our body and outside our body. And sometimes it can be in our awareness and sometimes it isn't. And yeah, I'm
mm,
really looking forward to holding space for that workshop at
yeah,
Ilkley
yeah.
Healing Alternatives Festival. It's going to be great. And you and I have done lots of workshops before and retreat
Mm,
days, as you
mm,
mentioned in the NHS. Um, and it's so lovely to bring those kind of, a group of diverse people, and a lot of
mm,
them may be already into the work of self-development or spiritual body workers, holistic therapists,
mm,
and various, but also, yeah, public people,
Yeah.
coming in and offering them an experience. And I think this is where what we do comes into the
Mm.
unique qualities of we're not just there teaching.
No.
We have an element of sharing some of our knowledge, which I guess you could call teaching in a way, but
Mm.
mostly we want to facilitate an experience for
Mm.
people, an
Absolutely.
experience for them to curiously, in whatever way feels right for them, because this is
Yeah.
all again about creating safety in the space and the group, and to explore what their armor is. Yeah,
Mm.
what their
Mm.
armor is, and to
Mm.
practice just some deep listening into
Mm.
exploring their own armor, and then beginning to think about what their body and mind might need and what might help them as part of their next, part of their next journey, really, stage of where they are now.
And I think that's the important aspect to the nature of the work that we do, isn't it? Where, as you say, both you and I are facilitators in different ways, as much as therapists and so on. And I think it's that key intention to work alongside somebody. So rather than being the expert in the room and the teacher or whatever it might be, the person with the answers, I suppose we are the people with the questions which help people discover their own answers. So I think this whole point, as you're saying, about more guiding, but also um, creating the opportunity for people to explore for themselves is part of the experience we're wanting to offer at Ilkley, but that's also an introduction into the way that we work as well. So hopefully people will get a bit of that too. So, yes, I think it's coming up to a little bit of our time now. I've really enjoyed having the chance to just talk about the things that we both know and work with, and really find out, a little bit more about you and help other people get introduced to you too, hopefully. So, I don't know if you just want to sort of say maybe, you know, the just tell us about the work, the website and so on that you've got, and also maybe just a little bit about expand on your new directions because you've come up with a model as well, which is really interesting.
Yeah, yes, my new model is much more about me embodying my own lived experience and creating that idea of a journey, which I've called the up spiral.
Hmm.
Journey of the Bodywise journey. So yeah, and that's about kind of developing a sense of awareness, understanding,
Uh-huh.
making choices about what you need where you are right now, and also the idea of integration and processing are in there as well. So
Mm.
yeah, I have this model which I'm going to be updating my website very shortly on, and doing some containers and different offerings. So the idea of having a group program, which is like a foundation space, and
Hmm.
this foundation is where we cultivate that awareness and understanding of emotions and our
Mm.
unique nervous system and beginning to explore parts, etc. And then the other container is the embodied processing pathway. So that's for anybody that wants to work one to one with me on a particular issue or an insight they've discovered on their journey or a particular difficult part or emotion or something that's come up for them that they want to explore a bit more deeply
Mm.
around who they are. And then the third container is the integration and continuity space, which is about living with that felt sense of steadiness
Mm.
and curiosity and integrating insights and becoming who you are, and that idea of working towards who you are and becoming who you are with all the wisdom that you gained along life and along the journey, really. So yeah, I'm quite excited about those, about the spiral and
Mm.
um, the new containers that I've created, because that's very much all about my own lived experience, about how
Yeah.
I've navigated. Is that often I can go back and forward through these
Yeah.
different types of spaces where I've needed different things myself at different times of my own journey, really. So
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
it's not a sort of straight line trajectory, is it, in that sense?
No, that's right, which is why I had you develop the spiral model. And it's very much all, key is that process of understanding, processing, and integrating,
Mm,
and continuing in the whole of that with living with this felt sense of capacity and steadiness and
mm,
self-trust.
mm.
It's the whole thing of self-trust that's been just huge on my own journey. And yeah, it's been so amazing kind of working with you one to one, working with you as a collaborator, doing the
Mm.
workshops and everything that we do together. I'm, yeah, feeling really excited about Ilkley, which is on Sunday. We've not mentioned the
Oh,
date,
yes.
Sunday, the
The,
12th of April in
yep. Coming up
Ilkley.
soon. Yes, the 11th and 12th, isn't it? The Ilkley Festival
The
as a whole.
weekend, that's
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Well,
yeah, I
I'll
look
put some of the
forward
details at
to.
the end of this too, and also add your website details and everything else, which is what's the website that you've got?
So it's angelagreen.co.uk.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well,
Yeah.
I'll put those at the end of the clip here too. So, Angela,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for
And who knows where we'll
talking.
continue to journey together with Jerry as well in the future and with different
We will.
offerings and things. Well, but yeah, if anybody's interested, I'm always open to have a free discussion and a chat with anybody that wants to explore anything about what I do. And thank you so much for inviting me
Pleasure.
to
No,
this call. Thank you.
okay. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye for now.